Imagine standing in a quiet gallery after hours, the lights low, the room humming with the building. In front of you a skull the size of a dining table glows under a single beam. Its armor plates are not teeth at all, but sharpened bone shaped by wear and motion. A natural guillotine that once opened and closed with great speed in ancient seas. You are looking at the business end of Dunkleosteus, the armor-plated superfish. It ruled the Late Devonian seas as one of the most formidable predators alive. I'm your guide tonight, a science communicator working with rock and story. I want to take you back roughly 360 million years in time. We will meet this animal in its world, not as a monster from a poster, but as a living, breathing piece of Earth's grand experiment with jaws. The Devonian is often called the Age of Fishes for good reason. Oceans were warm, continents arranged in strange new ways, reefs rising and falling. Rivers carried nutrients into broad continental shelves rich with life. In that churning mosaic the first forests took root and jawed vertebrates thrived. Placoderms, the armored fishes, were among the most remarkable of the time. Dunkleosteus was their apex, its head and thorax wrapped in linked bony plates. The interlocking shields formed a helmet, but the body was more flexible than it seemed. Its skull was engineered for raw, efficient power in attack. Look closely at the fossil and you will see there are no true teeth. The jaw edges are bony plates that sharpen against each other with every bite. A self-honing toolkit turning solid bone into deadly cutlery over a lifetime. Engineers admire this skull because it works like a system of levers. A linkage in the head let the mouth open wide and fast before closing with crushing force. One strike could end a chase in a single, decisive moment for the hunter. Size estimates vary, but imagine an animal longer than a car with massive head width. Heavily muscled through the forebody, capable of shearing armored prey cleanly. Now step out of the museum and into its water, the Late Devonian Sea. You float above a drowned shelf where visibility is patchy with plankton bloom. Light falls in mottled beams like a forest pond beneath the surface. Shoals of small fish glitter. Shell breakers work along the bottom in search of food. Swift sharks test their own strategies in the same waters. In the hazy middle depth a dark-shaped coast with minimal effort. Fins adjust its balance. Tail pushes with measured, economical beats. Our team once took a classroom to a shale outcrop from these ancient seas. The students were 13, bright, and full of questions. I asked them to imagine being prey in that water long ago. One student, Jaden, raised a hand and said, "I would hide." Then he added, "I'd look for cover that moves with me in open water." That simple thought is a child's sharp insight into predator and prey survival. Dunkleosteus needed enough encounters to feed its large body without waste. It had to win fights without burning more energy than it could gain. The solution was design, not rage. Stealth, speed, precision in the strike. Get close without warning. Strike quickly, aim for points that end resistance. Fossils show bite marks on armored fish and ammonoids that match its cutting arcs. Some shells are cracked cleanly as if pressed by powerful jaws. Behind the armor, the skin and body likely held clues to its style of movement. Related forms suggest a tail for bursts, not constant sprinting across distances. Fins capable of fine control let it coast until the last moment before attack. When I learned its jaws self-sharpened, I pictured a chef stropping a blade. But Dunkleosteus honed its edges in the act of feeding itself. Each meal prepared the hunter for the next with microscopic polish. In the lab, my colleague Renee pointed to the sheen on a jaw edge. She said, "You can see the habit of a lifetime recorded right there. That is the joy of paleontology. Behavior in scratches, diet in chemistry, seasons in mud. When the pieces align, the animal emerges as choices shaped by physics and chance." The Devonian seas were not gentle or stable for long periods. Reefs waxed and waned, storms reworked shores, oxygen levels sometimes dropped dangerously low. Life continued forward in waves of adaptation and innovation nonetheless. Dunkleosteus was part of that pulse, a pioneer of large-jawed dominance. It proved armor, speed, and cutting power could rule for a time in open water. To see why that time ended, we must first understand how it began. So hold that image of the dark shape coasting in the hazy Devonian light. Because the past is about to widen into a world of experiments and rivals. Picture the food web around our superfish, because no top hunter is a story alone. Small crustaceans grazed on drifting plankton, while little fishes snipped and darted away. Mid-sized hunters learned to chase and feint among the crowded marine workshop. Armored placoderms of other kinds sifted or crushed like living tools with specific jobs. Early sharks were leaner and faster, often with true teeth replaced like conveyor belts. Dunkleosteus invested in self-sharpening jaw plates and a forebody that worked as a ram. That mix meant ambush with authority, surging to hit hard and then withdraw quickly. Sprinting in the open sea burns fuel like a fire in wind, so it avoided long pursuits. At a quarry ledge of black shale breaking into paper-thin sheets, I watched a moment. A high schooler named Lena lifted a slab and found a fragile fin spine preserved. It came from a fish that once swam beside these armored giants in ancient seas. She looked up with a grin mixed with pride and worrying about holding it safely. We pressed the slab back with a note for the museum crew to collect later. On the walk out, she asked how they all lived together without emptying the pantry. The answer is they didn't. Sometimes the pantry spilled open, sometimes it locked shut. Balance lived between supply and appetite in this ancient marine ecosystem. Blooms could feed explosions that made life easy for hunters for brief windows. Storms could cool the surface, currents stall, and oxygen drop at depth suddenly. When the pantry door jammed, design mattered more than brute force or speed. A body built for efficiency can ride lean times better than one built only for speed. A mouth able to cut many prey types is a hedge against a narrow menu. Versatility becomes a form of patience in the harsh cycles of the sea. We read diet in chemical traces in bone and damage left on prey shells. Dunkleosteus likely sampled broadly, armored fishes when it could, softer prey when needed. Generalist does not mean sloppy, it means skill in more than one hunting path. One afternoon I sat with Ben, a wildlife artist, to draw the animal as a swimmer. He shaded the forebody heavy and the tail light, matching engineer reconstructions. The page felt balanced, weight forward, control aft, a living ram that could steer. Facts moving together to make a picture that behaves changes how we think. Some viewers ask if the armor made it slow in the water's resistance. The plates stop at the forebody, leaving the back half flexible for sudden speed. Speed remained, deployed late, as if the animal kept a hidden surprise in reserve. Viewers ask about senses. The head plates leave room for large, watchful eyes. Fishes use lateral line canals to feel water move, detecting wakes and pressure. Imagine a hunter tuned to vibrations and movement as much as to light. The conversation always returns to bite force, a hook for our imagination. Models suggest closing strength rivaling champions among living fishes and reptiles. Enough to punch through shields, but the point is speed married with control. Opening wide in an instant, then slamming shut in precise choreography. Fossils record rivals. Scrape marks may be from feeding or clashes with placoderms. A healed groove in armor tells of surviving a bad day and continuing on. I imagine a dusk hunt on a shelf edge as schools tighten with lengthening shadows. Small predators pressure from below. From the side a broad head angles in. A last-second flare of the mouth sends a rush pulling prey inward to the blades. In storytelling we call this a beat, a turn inside a larger narrative arc. In life history it is the habit grain that grows into a strategy over time. Season after season, hunters that waste fewer strikes outcompete those chasing bravado. Over thousands of generations, the lineage carries forward shapes that work best. Even a winning design lives within stages set by geology and climate shifts. In the Late Devonian, the stage tipped. Seas rose and fell. Reefs struggled to recover. Rivers poured new soils into basins and water chemistry wobbled unpredictably. Keep that quarry ledge in mind, the paper shale that crumbles at a touch. Such rock often forms when bottom waters turn still and low in oxygen for long. The record shows these quiet, breath-poor intervals expanded like shadows at nightfall. A top predator can ride many storms but depends on the base of the web. When the pantry door stays stuck too long, even giants face the limits of mastery. The Devonian was heading toward one of those great ecological tests. Now we reach the turn that makes Dunkleosteus feel both mighty and fragile in history. In the Late Devonian, Earth's rhythms swung wide across seas and lakes. A complex pulse of environmental stress rolled in a sequence called the Hindenburg Crisis. It is named for a rock layer that records the sudden change in conditions. In simple terms, the pantry faltered too often and in too many places at once. Bottom waters went breath-poor, while coastlines shifted dramatically in form. Fresh water surged off new soils, changing chemistry in marine habitats. Reefs collapsed and food webs built on stability began to blink and break. The fossil record shows many placoderms fading out in this turbulent time. Dunkleosteus is among them as sharks and bony fishes inherit the waves. The great-jawed tank exits the stage, leaving the ocean to different hunters. Why did it vanish while others stayed? Part is life history, part is lottery. If you grow large and mature late, you need many good years to replace yourself. If your young depend on certain nursery habitats that vanish or sour, odds shrink. If your foraging style fits a pantry now closed, your design becomes a burden. None of this is moral judgment, just physics of budgets meeting a new climate. It reminds us evolution is about being good enough in a moment, not invincible forever. When I teach this, I recall the students at the shale ledge. We had them write letters to a Devonian animal from a scientist's future view. One note from Lena read, "We found your world on a bad day and still it glows. We will not confuse an ending with a verdict," she wrote with conviction. That line reframes extinction not as failure, but as a record of shifting context. In that light, Dunkleosteus is both a champion of design and emblem of limits. It becomes a teacher not just about teeth and armor, but timing and resilience. Also about the scale of change that even a champion cannot outrun. What do we do with that lesson now, in our own altered oceans? Parts of the sea again run low on oxygen as nutrients flood coasts. Blooms feed while heat pushes species beyond familiar ranges and patterns. Causes differ from the Devonian, but the pattern feels familiar. Webs are strong until they are not, a truth that does not age. We are not in the Devonian. Our ocean holds different players and pressures. But the principle that connection makes and unmakes stability is evergreen. Ancient case studies matter because they show the fragility of balance. Museums are engines of comparison, pulling our eyes across time. Fossils ask what matters now, and Dunkleosteus answers with craft and care. We advance methods and stewardship. Scans, cameras, and models refine the picture. Better nutrient control and protected nurseries keep webs more resilient. Last spring, Renee, our preparator, noticed a tiny notch while polishing a jaw. A skin showed a nerve channel hinting at a sense we had not considered. A small clue became a better picture and opened a new question. Understanding grows through thousands of careful moments tested against rock and math. All comes not from scale alone, but from the tension between power and impermanence. Even rulers lived by budgets, breaks, and the whims of chance. Close your eyes and return to that hazy shelf at dusk in the Devonian. See the last second flare of a mouth, the cut, and the quiet after. The hunter drifts as the water resets and shadows lengthen across the shelf. Ahead the ocean changes, thresholds rise, and basins breathe on new rhythms. Our superfish will not cross that line, but kin will seed other lineages. Earth will keep experimenting as it always has through ages of change. Back in the gallery, the beam clicks off and the room dims to shadow. For a heartbeat we hear water where there is none, in the stillness of stone. It is the echo of a design that met a different ocean long ago. If you carry one image, let it be a mouth opening like a sudden door, closing like a sure decision, speed married to control, power to economy. Carry also the thought that dominance is local and temporary in any world. Threads tying lives to places can fray when water changes its rules. If you carry one action, let it be curiosity joined to care and practice. Learn the names of nearby fishes and notice water after heavy rain. Support those who measure the health of bays and shelves over time. When you visit a museum, ask how we know what we know from stone. In return, fossils give humility and courage to face our changing seas. Humility to accept even death's end, courage to tend the living systems now. On the long timeline, Dunkleosteus is not only a warning, but a beam of possibility. Proof the universe can shape bone into blades and motion into purpose for a while. Tonight, as we lock the door, the skull waits under its cover in darkness. I imagine the Devonian dark, a skull parting, a jaw edge flashing in motion. The hunter slides back into shadow as a page in the planet's memory turns. It turns with a sound you can hear if you listen closely. Listen on.